Hello class, and welcome to this Tennis NES guide right here on Video Games 101 by way of Let's Play with Briggins. I'm your instructor, Professor Briggins, and tennis is a decent sports title for the NES, which is impressive considering it is one of the first titles for the Famicom ever made. I think it was only the 7th or 8th game which was released on the Famicom. One of the launch titles, obviously, when the NES came to America in October of 1985, but the controls are decent, could be better. Maybe not the controls, but how the game reacts to what you're trying to do, and we'll talk more about that. But with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and give tennis for the NES a 7 out of 10 in terms of difficulty. On the frustration scale, this equates to punching a hole through the wall, probably accompanied with you saying, why would that ball go there? I wasn't aiming for there. That's ridiculous. Something probably with more expletives, but certainly the hole through the wall. We'll talk more about how to control the ball, get it going where you want it to. Fluff has some interesting facts about this game, so let's run the intro and get into this Tennis NES guide right here on Video Games 101. Singles and doubles is for 1 and 2 player modes respectively, and we're going to go with level 4 here with an overview of the different difficulty levels. Here's Fluff.
The different difficulties primarily affect the speed of the game as well as the aggression and skill of your opponent. On the higher difficulties, the ball and players each travel much faster, and your opponent is far more likely to charge the net and makes a lot less mistakes.
Thank you, Fluff. Yeah, we're here on the penultimate difficulty of 4. Let's take a look now at the controls for NES Tennis. Pretty straightforward. If you want to lob it, hit B. If you want to do a faster swing or serve, hit A and move around with the D-pad. Obviously, press start to pause the action. As we take a look now at the Briggs notes, these are the keys. This is what you really need to know to win in NES Tennis. First, do quick serves from the outside. So whenever you are serving the ball, you take turns. If you're not familiar with the rules of tennis, each game you take turns with the opponent in serving. So now they're serving, but yeah, want to go as far out to the right or left, depending on what side you're on the bottom, and then very quickly hit A as soon as they automatically throw up the ball. Secondly, stand on the side you want the ball to go when you are hitting the ball. So if I want the ball to go to the right, I'm going to stand to the right of the ball as it's coming toward me. And that's one of the biggest keys and things to understand about this game. The controls aren't super precise, but that's the main rule to go by. Also depends where your proximity is to the net, how close you are to the net. Because if you're further away, then the ball is going to go a lot farther to the left or right. So just something to consider. Number 3, you want to lob the ball back when you see your opponent approaching the net. You'll see us doing this really quite a bit as we settle into this game here. We'll talk more about that as we move forward. And the final Briggs note, keys to winning in tennis, is to return lobs with lobs when you are beyond the center line. That kind of goes back to what I was saying with that second note. The farther you are back, the more likely that the hit is going to go farther to the left or right. So just essentially, if you do a normal swing when you're too far back, it's going to go wild outside of those outside lines, as you can see right there. Just a quick overview of the rules of tennis. When you're playing in singles mode against a single opponent, you need to keep the ball within kind of the middle rectangle. You see those two tiny, slender, thin rectangles. How many synonyms can I come up with that? On the sides, the left and right sides, which go the length of the court, we cannot use those. If our ball goes within those rectangles, those thinner ones on the outside, that is a point for our opponent. So we just need to work with kind of the major rectangle, which we're playing with right here in the center. If you're playing doubles, then you have access to those outside rectangles as well. But again, apologize if you're already familiar with the basic rules of tennis, but that's very important if you're playing this game for the first time and you don't know how tennis works. Also, if you're not familiar with the scoring of tennis, it's a little strange. Basically, the scoring goes 0 points, then when you win a point, you get 15, then you get 30, then you get 40, and then one more and you win. The exception is if you're tied at 40, which is something called deuce, which is what we are at right now. So you have to win by 2, essentially, if your opponent also has 40. Alright, so now we have the advantage, hence the A next to you, our player at the bottom in the blue shirt. So if we get one more point right now, now we go back to deuce. So got to win 2 in a row at this point, but see if we can't close this out. But yes, let's start applying some of these Briggs notes so you can better understand what's going on here, how to play this game, because it becomes more clear when you see these things in practice. Let's see if we can't win this point, and with it the game, there we go, just by being aggressive, getting up on the net, which we'll talk more about. In terms of winning the actual overall match, you need to win 6 games per set before your opponent. And it's a similar rule. If your opponent is also at 6 games, you need to win by 2 in that case. Or if they're at 5, you need to get to 7. Kind of like the deuce rule. You need to win by 2 once it gets that close. But win 6 games before your opponent with that caveat, and you win the set. And then we're playing 3 sets here, so it's a best of 3. So if we win 2 sets, we win the game. But there you go. Very, very confusing, admittedly, the scoring in tennis. We could have done an entire class just on that, if you're not familiar with it. But so when you're serving, we'll get to our next serve here. But yeah, you can see him rushing the net, in which case we were using the lob, the B button there. So when you're serving, we'll go to the outside. You want to tap A pretty much immediately as soon as your guy automatically throws the ball up in the air. That gives you the lowest profile serve, and in my experience, the most speed. You would think you'd want to hit the ball at the height of throwing it into the air to get the most force behind it, and angle and everything like that, but not the case here in Tennis for the NES. So with this being the 4th most difficult difficulty out of 5, our opponent is extremely challenging at this stage. 5, they're pretty much robotic, and it's just not fun to play in my experience. 4 is a lot of challenge once you get comfortable with this game and apply these Briggs notes. So we're right up on the net here. He's on the net, so I probably want to lob it. Sometimes it's about how quickly your brain can react. So we're right up on the net. If he's staying back and I'm right up on the net, then I'm just going with the A for the quick hit. And the closer you are to the net, the faster you're going to hit that ball. So he came up on the net after his serve. That's why I lobbed it there. Because you'll find that when he comes up on the net, your opponent, that if you give him a normal hit, well, that was just kind of a fluke right there. Sometimes, if it hits your body, then it just dies immediately, and they'll get the point. But see if we can't put some of these things into practice. So he's on the net, so I'm going to lob it here. If I gave him a normal hit right there, he would smack it back, especially on this difficulty, with a lot of velocity, probably at an angle that I couldn't react to. They give you 2 chances to get the ball into that opposite rectangle, that opposite box, and they just aced us right there, which means they got their serve in without us even touching it. We'll get some of those every now and then, but on this difficulty, it's kind of tricky. So he lobbed it there, so I should have probably moved it back, because that was a deep lob. Was very aggressive there. Don't normally recommend that, but sometimes that's how you need to play. Certainly on the 5th hardest, the most difficult challenger to win the game. Essentially, the strategy when you're serving, though, is to go wide, get that quick serve off. He'll generally just give you a weak return, and then you can just hit it in the opposite direction by positioning your player as you need to, pretty much on the opposite side. But yeah, If you can stay up on that net, you can put a lot more velocity behind it, and it makes it very difficult for him to return it to you. So we'll lob it here since he's on the net. And since he's staying back, I'm just trying to get some quick hits in. On the easier difficulties, they have a harder time returning these net shots that we're getting off with a lot of speed, but generally also the farther to the left or right you are when you hit the ball, the harder it's going to go in that direction. And the more of an angle, which will make it more difficult for your opponent to get to said ball. To the game's credit, it's a lot easier, and it's realistic in that you have an advantage when you're serving, in that you kind of put your opponent on their heels. You serve it quickly, like we show, and they barely have time to return it to you. Don't get a lot of velocity on it, which allows you to come up on the net and then get that hit in where they're not, essentially. It's just a pattern you'll see that we get into. When they're serving, and you're trying to break their serve, essentially winning a game while they're serving, it's called breaking them, then you just need to be more of a reactionary style of play, where you're just reacting to what they're doing. So we'll lob it here since they're coming up on the net. And then when they back up, lob it again. See there, it could have gotten a lot more speed on that one. They didn't really make us pay like they normally would, so lob it here. And as long as they're staying back, that's when we're coming up on the net, so we can get those every now and then. It's kind of out of your control as to whether or not it's going to go out. If you lob it close to the net, it's going to go farther than you anticipate or mean for it to. See if we can steal a game from him here, but here we go. You can see, man, so much for that. As long as we can hold serve, we'll win this by 2 that we... Oh. All right, Mario's playing favorites over there right now. Just saying fault before I've even... What's that about, Mario? Come on now, I've never seen that glitch before. Speaking of Mario, let's bring in Fluff for a Fluff fact. Hey, good return right there. He just drove the line about tennis for the NES. Fluff, what do you got?
Add tennis referee to the exhaustive list of jobs which Mario has held down over the years. A fun fact about this game is that it's Mario's first cameo appearance in a video game. That is assuming, of course, we're excluding Donkey Kong Jr., where Mario played the antagonist who ruthlessly captured a wild animal and heartlessly separated it from his son.
Fluff, I know you got an axe to grind against Mario for some reason, but yeah, not the venue for that right now. As we are trying to claw back from being broken ourselves here and staying in the driver's seat. There we go. This is what I'm basically talking about when I'm saying when you are serving, you're in control. They get a little weak shot back on you. Hopefully that stays in. There we go. Alright, well, they got the advantage there. Let's see if we can claw back here. They give us a weak hit. Especially works when I find when you're on the left-hand side. I don't know, maybe that's just how my brain works or something, that I have higher success there, but I seem to get those sharp returns. There we go. That's what I'm looking for right there. Yeah, just get a good serve off on them. They don't get a lot back when they send it to you, and gives you so much open court right there to return that. And we cause their brains to break as they just kind of run into the wall over there. All right. So it's all right if we don't win this game. As long as we just hold serve next game, then we'll win this set and move on to the next set. I find that they tend to ratchet up the difficulty ever so slightly between the two sets if you win the first one, so we'll see if that holds true here. Yeah, generally if I miss that first swing, then I'll just go for a lob if I head back and actually can make contact with it. Depends how fast the ball's moving and how quickly you start it moving with regards to it, but we are in control right here. And as we aim to break him and win our first set right here, right now on this game, let's bring in Fluff for another Fluff fact about NES Tennis. Fluff?
Tennis was one of the earliest titles for the Famicom upon its release in Japan in January of 1984, and it was designed by the creator of Super Mario himself, Shigeru Miyamoto, and was released just a month after Miyamoto's previous game he designed, Baseball, for the NES, which we also did a recent class on. Link in the playlist in the description, by the way. It was a different time, Professor, when the developer could just churn out game after game in such a short span.
Yeah, good point, Fluff. I always think of another game we did a class on in the past, which is very near and dear to my heart, and Battle of Olympus. Fantastic game, but that game was essentially made by a 3-person team over a span of a few months, and it's one of the best games on the NES for my money. And now we're 12 years between Grand Theft Autos with a team of thousands of people working on those, so not an apples to apples, but, you know, it's interesting to me nonetheless. As we should be able to just serve our way to victory in this first set here. It's a bit more difficult. Just slam it right there. Yeah, when they're playing a bit more defensively, that's when we can really get in control, command the net, and yeah, well, sometimes they lob it a little too high over our heads. But if you try moving back and doing that same slam, then it's probably going to go wide and out of bounds, so to lose the point. But there we go, one set down. We're the winners there. So again, they're going to ratchet up the difficulty ever so slightly. And this is going to be harder in general because we are not serving first this time, so it's going to put us behind. If we can break them, it's really going to help us out here. All right, that was a gimme. Every now and then you get a brain fart from your opponent, but sometimes they'll double fault on a serve, won't get it in the box with both chances, and then we'll win the point, but it's rare. Sometimes those are, yeah, you gotta rely on those for giving yourself a chance. He's hugging the line there. And as we try to break him, let's bring in Fluff for another Fluff fact about tennis. That was probably gonna go out. We'll take it. Tennis for the NES. Fluff, what do you got for us?
I've talked about this in previous classes, but tennis was one of many games featured as part of the Nintendo Versus arcade system, which allowed players to play against one another in the arcade setting.
Yeah, I could legitimately see this as being a fun time to play in the arcade, actually. Probably frustrating, because of moments like that where what you mean to do isn't what actually happens. In that case, it was fair if you try to do a faster return a little bit too far from the net. That's when you hit the net a lot of times. Just things you learn through feel and repetition, but there we go. That's going to pay huge dividends, and if we can steal this one here, then well, it won't be stealing. If we can just hold serve pretty much for the remainder of this second set, then we should win this one without too much difficulty. Again, going wide, serving as quickly as possible. Doesn't always make sense. And yeah, went a little bit too far back, like I just said. Returning it with A when you're a little too far away from the net. Doesn't make sense. You can't always think. That's always a nice, reliable point right there, though, in that case. But yeah, doesn't always react like you would expect it to with normal tennis. But again, this being one of the earliest, there we go, games for the NES. Still very impressive, and Shigeru Miyamoto at the helm, obviously. Very cool. Guess he wasn't as passionate about tennis as he was baseball, but, you know, he knew the value. I think that one would have gone out if they had let it, actually. He knew the value in just having sports titles that everybody could... This is a good volley right here. Sometimes I just like to go aggressive when I'm not serving. Playing with house money, especially, like I said, we're in the driver's seat at this point, so we're taking some more chances here. Alright, I'll take that. A little bit long on that serve, I suppose. Mario trying to make up for when he when he glitched us out by saying fault before we'd even thrown the ball up in the air before. There's something to be said about playing with confidence. Like a lot of video games, you know, you have a full bar of health, you have lots of lives. You tend to play a little bit looser as a result, get better results. And that is certainly the case right here when we're in the driver's seat with regards to being up 2 games to none. Just being aggressive, coming up on this net, getting far to the left or right to get a lot of velocity on the hit. You get more velocity, but you also get more of that angle, so they have less time to react to and get to that section of the court. It's kind of crazy, though, that they can return some of these shots we're putting on them with the speed and the angles right at the front of the net. I like it. Tight angles right there. No one can get to one of those, not even the level 5 guy, which I guess we'll show a little bit at the end. It's kind of like Excite Bike. As soon as you win a particular match, when you beat an opponent, you move on to the next level of opponent. So it'll take us right to the level 5 guy. If we win this one. If this trend continues, the momentum here. That might have been going out, actually. That was a mistake on my part. It's very rare that they put it out of play. There we go. I meant to hit that on right there. There we go. Got us the deuce, at least. And while we're still battling, trying to steal another one from Purple Shirt here, let's throw back to Fluff for one more Fluff fact about tennis for the NES.
Between its decent design and the fact that it was one of the relatively few titles available in the salad days of the Famicom and NES, tennis was a hit upon its release. Selling roughly 2.5 million copies, it's also approximately the 8th most popular sports title for the NES and Famicom, behind the likes of golf, pro wrestling, ice hockey, and Punch-Out!
All classics, thank you very much, Fluff, and pretty much all games, I think, that we've done classes on. Yeah, golf did a great. Blaze really showed up for that. I mean, he always shows up, except for today, actually. Poor timing. He's just wouldn't have anything to add to this particular game, but yeah, he definitely showed up for that golf game for the NES, giving you the club links, the distances you can expect for all those clubs, because it's not in the game. That was a gimme. I'll take that. I think the game's respecting what we're bringing to it this time, as we're trying to sweep him in this set. See, that's why you don't want to necessarily just give him normal swings when he's at the net. Got a little aggressive there. Should have come in more from the right, but it's a very small window a lot of times, especially when the ball's moving at this pace, you'll find, and trying to actually make contact. Sometimes it goes over your racket, like in that case, very slowly, which looks embarrassing, and kind of is, but I don't think we're going to win this one. That's fine. Again, house money, just got to win 2 more. We have 2 more serving games before it even gets close, so oof. As long as we can stay in control. Yeah, they're not going to go down easy, though. Trying to get more of an angle on that to send that to the right, but you're always rolling the dice when it's not a lob. And is that in, Mario? There we go. Yeah. Yeah, we did a class on golf, pro wrestling. That was a lot of fun. Gave you some good keys to that one, with covering all the moves. Ice hockey, that's just one of my favorite sports titles for the NES in general. And then Punch-Out, just classic of classics when it comes to the sports titles. Still such an immersive feel when you got the sound up in that game. Feels like you're in the arcade, if not the boxing ring itself. Easy. Straight points for the win right there. Just 1 game for the match win. And as I said, we'll give you a little glimpse, see if we can win 1 point against the level 5 guy. It's just ridiculous. Too far back there, but yeah. Mario double dipping there. He's referee in the boxing ring. Referee here. Yeah, like Fluff said, this is the first kind of cameo where Mario's in a game where he's not a playable character. If we're not going to count, again, like Fluff mentioned when he was airing his dirty laundry with Donkey Kong Jr. But yeah, it's fun to see all the different places where they worked him in over the years. I remember in that Punch-Out class, I think Fluff mentioned that the developer, because that wasn't Shigeru Miyamoto, and he just kind of put in Mario as a placeholder, and he was kind of like, I hope it's okay to use Mario here for that little cameo as the referee, and ultimately it worked out, but yeah, he wasn't sure about that. I think it's smart. It's nice. It's good for the branding, obviously. But let's just get a couple more points here and win handily. Feeling pretty good about this. Yeah, had to grind this game for not too long in the grand scheme of things to learn the mechanics and get a good feel for it to get to this level. But yeah, these are the Briggs notes, everything we've been talking about, all things that you learn over the course of playing this game quite a bit. And there you go, that's how you beat level 4, a very, very challenging opponent. And now just for a laugh before we go, let's get a little glimpse of level 5. If you haven't already done so, by the way, please consider subscribing to Video Games 101 to enroll in these classes. We do one of these classes every single week in the same spot. Love to have you enrolled. Leave a like. Wow, got a point. Leave a like. Same strategy here, obviously, but yeah, click that like button if you don't mind. It really does help us out to make future classes nice for you. And leave a comment. Have you played much of tennis in or outside of this game in the real world as well? But yeah, let me know. Obviously, it's not Mario Tennis quality for the 64, one of the best tennis games of all time. Maybe my favorite tennis game, video game of all time for my money. That felt pretty good, but there you go. Let's see, can we just steal one more? We steal a game. Not really stealing a game when we're serving, but yeah, we're it's always stealing when you're playing against this guy. Let's see how ridiculously fast it is at this clip. Always got to be moving on this difficulty. Just be ready to move. Can't have any heavy legs. That was bad. I'll take deuce against this guy. Alright. We get one more. What side are we on here? We might be able to get this with our classic move right here. He's getting aggressive. Doesn't always work against level 5. This is Federer right here. That was sloppy. That might have been going out. Federer in his prime. This is drama we're manufacturing here late in this class. It's a struggle. It's just hard to get the angle. That one hurts. It's hard to get the angle moving left to right versus right to left. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because it's your backhand at that point. And again, it's just more of that realism that Miyamoto was putting into the game. It's impressive nonetheless, but yeah, there we go, right down the line. I'm on my good side here. Can we go hard left for the win? There we go, sweet spot. All right, I'm gonna get out of here before I embarrass myself, go out on a high. We'll see you next week in the same spot for next week's class right here on Video Games 101. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and comment on this video, and click subscribe if you haven't already, as this seriously helps me to keep making great content for you. And check the description of this video to see what song is playing right now.